Thank you. We're going to start. This is the audience participation part of the webinar. We're going to start with a few simple questions, and you can put your answers in chat or call them out. But we'll move through a couple of questions rather quickly. According to the National Clearinghouse data published by the Department of Education, what is the median 6-year graduation rate for 4-year colleges and universities in the United States? This is the most current data. You can put your responses in chat or throw out an answer. 57%, okay. 57, 57, 57, okay. Well, according to the most recent data, it is actually 64%. So if we go to the next slide, what do you think is the median 6-year graduation rate for white students, as opposed to the median 6-year graduation rate for Black or Hispanic students? Folks are wanting to keep it to themselves at this point. Okay. BIPOC 58, 58 and 46. You're definitely getting closer. In fact, the graduation rate for white students, 6-year graduation rate is 58%. For Black students, it is 39%. For Hispanic students, it is 46%. So essentially all the answers were correct, but with various populations. Let's take a look at another quick question. According to the National Clearinghouse, the average salaries for Black 25 to 34-year-olds, so that's anywhere from 3 to 10 years after graduation, full-time employees with bachelor's degrees working in management positions, falls how far behind salaries for comparable white graduates? And how far behind do you think women's salaries fall for male, as compared to male graduates? $6,000 and $2,000? Close but optimistic. Currently, the answer is the salary for Black management graduates falls $10,000 behind that for white graduates. The salary for women management graduates falls $4,000 behind that for male graduates. Similarly, I'll just give the answers on this one. Again, looking at the percentage of white women who are enrolled in an associate's degree program, what percentage left higher education without transferring, continuing enrollment, or receiving a certificate or a degree, as opposed to the percentage of Black women who left the academy with nothing to show? According to the most recent 2020 National Clearinghouse statistics, 36.6% of white women enrolled in associate's or certificate degree programs have left the institution, have left the academy without anything after 3 years. 50.4% of Black women in associate's or certificate programs have left the academy without a degree or certificate or a transfer. It's now my pleasure to introduce Drew Koch, Chief Executive Officer of the Gardner Institute, who's going to share with you a little bit of a perspective about why learning equity and employability. Drew.
Vicki, thank you very much, and thank you for getting us started. It is a true pleasure and a real honor to be with all of you today, with my colleagues from the Gardner Institute and QA Commons, as well as a number of representatives from various post-secondary education institutions across the U.S. I want to get at the big why first by starting with the Gardner Institute's big why. For those of you who don't know us, or maybe think you know us, I'll share a bit at least of what I know of us being the Gardner Institute, right? We're a 23-year-old not-for-profit organization. And our mission is two sentences. The first sentence has to do with working with colleges, universities, individual educators, organizations, and funders, philanthropic organizations in particular, to improve teaching, learning, student success, and completion. And then the second sentence has to do with the why we do that, right? And it's so that we can advance broader societal equity and social justice goals, right? We could have elected to advance broader societal, social justice, and equity goals in a number of areas. But we, given our expertise, what we brought to the table when we started, particularly John Gardner, Betsy Barefoot, and now all of us, my colleagues here, and 20 to 60 plus on how you, depending on how you count, colleagues across the globe who work with the Gardner Institute, we focus on post-secondary education. So that's our big why. Vicki had shared some evidence right before I talked that I need not go into as sort of the fuel for the fire, behind the why, right? And I want to state that for purposes of our work here, we're focused on two components. One, the type of structures that either lead to more equitable outcomes in undergraduate education broadly. And then secondly, the structures that lead to more equitable outcomes in employability, right? It is clearly not enough to make sure that access is expanded to post-secondary education institutions. We have to work with the students we have in this day and age to create the structures and opportunities and possibilities so that every student can succeed, regardless of demographic variable or characteristic as predictors. But it's not enough to do that, right? We also have seen the outcomes that Vicki shared that suggest even when we do that, by the way, the national evidence we've looked at, and even state and regional evidence, and some institutional evidence, or a lot of institutional evidence, but we're not adding anybody, suggests we don't do that well at all. But even when we get students to cross the finish line, we are not enabling them to start their careers in equitable ways. And clearly that inequity compounds over time, right? If you are in your early 20s or mid 20s and early 30s and making $10,000 a year yet less, that clearly will compound in many, many ways over time in life. And it influences generational wealth as well, right? So part of the big why behind this is because, well, it gets back to our mission, which I shared with you earlier. Part of the big why behind why we're doing this with the QA Commons is because we're educated people and we know we don't know it all, particularly when it comes to elements and issues related to employability, but we know they do know a lot about employability and post-secondary education, and they share our concern and our commitment, our values associated with equity and social justice. So these are the big whys, right? Because Vicki had shared with you some evidence that suggests, and there's a lot more evidence that suggests that higher ed institutions aren't doing this as well as they could. We're not requiring or trying to shame institutions, and certainly not requiring them to take responsibility for broader social dynamics that are beyond their control. But we are asking them to take a look at what are the things they can do, where do they have locus of control, and how can they do things that lead to more equitable and sustainable, societally beneficial outcomes in undergrad ed, and then employability and life thereafter. So that kind of gives you our big why as the Institute and why we're here now with you. We're thrilled to have some like-minded people here from institutions. We're also thrilled to have like-minded people here from the QA Commons, most notably my colleague Mason Bishop. So I'm going to turn it back to you, Vicki, so we can turn it over to Mason at some juncture. But thank you for having me here, and thank you for joining us today for this truly meaningful work. Oh, one last thing, right? We've done many things at the Gardner Institute over 23 years. We've worked with over 500 colleges and universities on transformation and post-secondary ed and equitable transformation and post-secondary ed, but we've never done this before. So this is an opportunity to apply all that knowledge we do have, combine it with the wisdom and the knowledge that you bring from your institutions and the wisdom and the knowledge from the QA Commons. But we're going to learn along the way. So we're inviting you right now, I'm inviting you to join us on this journey, our next step in work at the Gardner Institute, this one in partnership with the QA Commons. But again, as educated people, we know we don't know it all, and we're going to learn from and with you. So we invite you to consider being part of the inaugural cohort in this work. And to tell you a bit more about why we want to, let me turn it back to Vicki and Mason.
Thank you so much, Drew. It's time for audience participation again. We have some more questions before I introduce Mason. In a study by the American Enterprise Institute, those in STEM fields, and we're talking inclusive of associates, baccalaureate, and advanced degrees, when folks in STEM fields were asked how important various skills were on their jobs, of these three items below, which do you think ranked the highest, which the lowest? Good written and communication skills, higher level math, analytical computer skills, critical thinking skills. I'll let you think on your answers for that for a minute. Since it would be a lot of typing dashy to put them into if we can show the next slide. Critical thinking skills was top rated, followed by writing and communication skills. Those higher level math, computer, analytical skills, only 36% felt that they were the most important skills. According to the Society for Human Resource Management, what percentage of employers say they have a hard time finding graduates with soft skills that their companies need? Okay, we're getting some percentages, 85, 70. I'm going to turn to my colleague, Michelle, because I don't have the answer for this one.
It is 85.
Fantastic. So yes, the vast majority of employers.
Oops.
It is my pleasure to now introduce Mason Bishop, President of the Quality Assurance Commons, who will talk more about QA Commons and their engagement in this process. Mason.
Great. Thank you, Vicki. And I want to thank Drew for his kind introduction and comments, as well as the entire Gardner team. Where Michelle and I, Michelle Deasy's on the call as well. She's with the QA Commons. I've been president of QA Commons for less than a year. I started last July 1st, and wanted to just give you a quick background of how the QA Commons started, why it started, what we're working on, and why partner with Gardner, and what we hope to accomplish. Real quickly, the Quality Assurance Commons was created roughly in right around 2017. And it was started by Ralph Wolf, who was the founder, working with the Lumina Foundation, who was the initial funder of the QA Commons. And they sought to address a key issue initially, which was how do we help baccalaureate degree holders and those in baccalaureate degree level programs with employability skills needed for not only success in employment, but probably more importantly, upward mobility and career pathways. Since that time, we've learned a lot. The QA Commons created a program certification model. Since that time, since I've started July 1st, Ralph provided me a nice handoff of a great, and we are a 501c3 nonprofit, I should add that as well. What we've embarked on over the last year is a journey to do really two things. One, expand the services we're providing, and two, expand the partnerships and audiences that we are working with. We're expanding services through a couple of ways. One, in addition to our program certification model, which we piloted initially in Kentucky and Connecticut, we are in the process of implementing badging around our 8 essential employability quality areas so that students who are in certified programs can actually get badges that they can add to their student portfolios, along with the technical education, knowledge, and skills that they're gaining as part of those portfolios. We also are finalizing what we're calling professional certification around employability. What that means is that those engaged in more career services or work readiness kinds of work, we are working with those professionals to help them create a common set of framework and process by which they help people with addressing employability as they're trying to get jobs and careers. And again, the real purpose of all of this is that I think we all know on this call that we have seen from a couple of questions we provided that employers and workers both are saying we need more help gaining the employability skills that are needed to advance in careers and initially get jobs. Yet our belief is that to be able to truly address that, it's going to take more than just what I would call light touch kinds of 1-hour workshops with people who may not have been exposed to a lot of these employability skills throughout their lifetimes. We need more integrated and deeper, rigorous services around the technical training programs, the 4-year education programs, and others. And that's what we're trying to embark on with QA Commons, to provide an answer to this question around how do we address the employability skills that are needed by students and workers as they move into jobs and careers. With that said, so why are we here today partnered with the Gardner Institute? First of all, we're very thankful the Gardner Institute is partnered with us and wants to work with us. And you saw on the initial slide, equity plus learning plus employability. What we believe fundamentally is that if we're addressing equity, we have to address employability. There's a lot of data, as we know. Drew talked about some of the disparities in education and what they've been working on. We're working on those disparities in employment. And those disparities in employment are pronounced in many of the areas that we are offering our essential employability qualities in our program certification around. Exposure to critical analysis, not only in knowing what it is, but how do you express that on the job? Teamwork and communications, and what is it exactly that employers need, and how do we work with educational institutions to define what employers need for jobs and industries, and ensure that the individuals in their 2-year, 4-year, or other training programs are working toward those specific kinds of employability skills that employers say they need, and help express those both, again, in the classroom and on the job. So we believe fundamentally that to address equity, it's about addressing the kinds of things that Gardner works on in the classroom around curriculum redesign and other kinds of things, but it also involves how do we help people gain the employability skills and the exposure to employment that then needed to successfully transition from their educational setting into a job and career setting. So again, we're really excited to work with you on all of this. As Drew has mentioned, we're here to learn as well. And so again, I'm just so appreciative of all the people who've been working on this partnership and all of those of you who are interested in taking this journey with us. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mason. I'm now introducing a number of the members of the team from both the QA Commons and the Gardner Institute who have been working on the development of the curriculum for this academy, and who will have the opportunity to speak. But I'm introducing Dr. Monica Flippen-Wynn, Senior Assistant Vice President of the Gardner Institute, who'll be joining us a little bit later. Dean Ed Willis, Resident Fellow at the Gardner Institute, and Michelle Deasy, Vice President from the QA Commons. Ed, I believe you are next.
Great, thanks, Vicki, appreciate it. And welcome, colleagues. It's a pleasure to have you with us this afternoon. And we hope that as we move through this presentation, it really excites you and entices you to become a part of this important academy and this important work. Expectations. So a little bit about, very briefly, what you can expect if you connect with the academy. We're certainly going to tackle the theoretical and practical background around equitable student learning, success, and employment, and you heard that earlier, both from Mason and Drew. You'll have an opportunity to do a deep dive in terms of equity analysis and institutional incomes. You'll see what's happening out there in this field and really be able to touch that information, discuss it, engage around it, and we think that will certainly broaden your learning. Identifying institutional resources for barriers to employment and completion. And so you'll have a chance to look at what's happening nationally, but also this chance to dive into your own institution, look at your own data, and see what story that's telling you about your students and as they progress in their journey across your campus. And that's particularly as well. Oftentimes, we found in a number of the academies we've done on other topics of the subjects that many of our campus individuals don't have a chance to really touch the data. They don't get a chance to see it, and also that to embrace that story really tells you about your students and who they are. Embedding equity and employability in your academic programs, another key and critical role. This notion that the employment side of the belongs to those in career services or those who do that set of work is not what we're looking at, and certainly the equity component is not wedded to those folks who do that set of work. But how do you infuse and weave these concepts into your full academic program so that at the end of the journey for students, they really have those qualities, have been exposed to those components. What institutions out there are doing this really, really well? That there are some exemplars out there, and you'll get an opportunity to get exposed to those. You'll hear directly from employers, other administrators across a number of different campuses. You'll read some articles about the stellar work that's happening in this arena. We want you at the end of the day to really develop a cabinet-ready proposal that you can take to your institution's leadership, that they will buy in and support this work at your institution. So we look forward to you joining us in that journey. Vicki?
Thank you, Ed. And Michelle, you're up.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Deasy from QA Commons. I'm happy to be here. And wanted to give you kind of a look at the journey through the Academy, which is a 5-week experience. So we've all been together working, spending some time to see how do we take these very rich academies that Gardner has been doing and weave in some of our work. So it is a 5-week experience, team experience. There will be a little bit of week 0 pre-work, but we're going to start with, why equity and why employability. So we're really going to kind of dig into connecting completion and employability. We're going to look at family background as a critical factor, and we'll allow each team to create a germane and appropriate definition of equity that that resonates with them and their institution. Week 2, we're going to get into the data. We'll do this through some guided exercises. For completion, we'll focus primarily on the IPEDS data. But on the employability side, we're going to look at a few different things. The college scorecard, the Post-Secondary Values Commission data, some data from the Georgetown Center on Education Workforce. We've got a few of those things because, quite frankly, there are limitations to each. So we're going to talk about that and also get into a little bit about what institutions might do or design on their own because of this incomplete data. In week 3, we're going to talk about introduce QA Commons employability framework. And then we're going to bring in a panel of employers to actually to speak with us and engage with us because, we don't want to be at that place where we're doing our work over here and then we send them off to the employers over here. We want for everyone to be hearing from everyone and really sort of be engaged firsthand. As Ed mentioned, in week 4, we're going to bring in some exemplars. We're going to learn about great things that are happening out there, promising practices, sharing some different ideas and things that are already happening and have been executed. And then in week 5, we are going to move into that plan to plan. So you're going to formalize it, and it's going to be, a plan for program-specific or institution-wide integration of equity and employability outcomes into curriculum and program design. And we expect that it's going to look very different for each institution. That's that. I'm going to hand it back to you, I believe,
Thank
Ed.
you, Michelle. And Ed, if you could speak to the issue of the power of the Academy model from our experiences.
Thanks, Vicki and Michelle, appreciate that. So there is power in the Academy model. What the Gardner Institute in particular can tell you is that we have engaged in a number of different academies over the last several years. The ability to bring together colleagues, constituents from across the country are really dealing with similar issues, we're able to have that opportunity to discuss, critique, learn from each other. Has been powerful. We have seen the results. We've got feedback that tells us that it's particularly positive. The strategic importance of addressing equity is at the very beginning of this equity journey for us all. Oftentimes on our campuses, equity is a tough subject to have a conversation about, and we found that this academy will provide an opportunity for you to engage in that discussions, again, with individuals across the country, begin to, at some level, get a comfort level with those kinds of discussions because they're key, critical, and they're ongoing as well. How does equity impact employability and addressing employability? There were some statistics that were shared earlier that says those, and particularly those students of color, are lagging behind. Women students are lagging behind in terms of employability. How does your campus address those kinds of issues? The academy will allow you to delve into that. What are the best practices? I talked earlier about sharing ideas and how critical that is. What does the literature tell us in terms of what's happening around this arena of employability and equity and the importance of that? Targeted team discussions. We will challenge you in the academy, so we do want you to know that. But the challenge usually, you get really great results as a part of being a part of that process. It really is one that we have seen the benefits of. And it's, when you think about it in terms of the cost of a program like this, what you will gain in terms of your students really being retained at your campus, certainly moving through your institution, their institutional journey, and at the end of the day, being gainfully employed, or either going to graduate school, whatever their choice may be, will see the benefits of that. And so the academy model, again, it's a proven model in the Gardner Institute, and we invite you to certainly join us in that journey. Thanks, Vicki.
Thank you, Ed. Michelle.
All right, I'm going to jump in here with the who. Who should comprise this academy team of 6 to 10 members? In the application that we have, we actually do ask you to sort of have thought about that and outline it. So absolutely academic affairs. And so a provost ideally, but also some curricular leaders or set of program faculty or department chairs who really have an ability to change academic programs. Career services, institutional research, maybe a representative from each. Actually, QA Commons has this employability framework that goes over not only these 8 essential employability qualities, but in tandem, what does a college or an education program need to, how do they need to be addressing this? And we've got in there career services, institutional research. It's also, we're thinking about experiential, sorry, oops, I hit the wrong button. Sorry. Experiential learning officers, academic advisors, and DEI officers are the kinds of people we want to have on this team. And I think I'm handing it back to you, Ed.
Great, thanks, Michelle. Appreciate that. I would just add to what Michelle shared in that there will also be an opportunity to engage students and have the student voice heard as a part of this process as well. It's one of the things we found particularly positive as we've engaged in these academies across our Gardner platform, ensuring that the student voice is one that we're truly listening to, we're truly hearing, and we're acting upon it. At the end of the day, those are the ones who are being impacted by that. So I just wanted to add that piece. What's included in the academy? It's one of the things we found particularly powerful, and we've gotten really good feedback about this, and it's a 5-week curriculum. So you jump feet first in really fast. There's a lot thrown at you, and it can be challenging, but we've gotten feedback about that. Vicki can attest to that, and Monica as well. She joins, but it's sort of an exhilarating experience. And you walk away with a lot to reflect on, a lot to tackle. We do begin with what we call a week 0 module, which is sort of an orientation. So it's an opportunity for you and your team to get your feet wet and to get comfortable with the platform, the literature, the information, and certainly some of the expectations that we'll have for you to engage. A data platform be a part of the process. We talked about utilizing data as a platform to really discover the story of your students and what's happening with students in your campus. So you'll get a chance to really touch that. There are weekly synchronous meetings. We usually do about an hour and a half where we come together as a full body, and there will either be speakers, or there will be opportunities to engage in some exercises as you did today, some opportunity to even break out into small groups to have some discussion points as well around those specific topics for that particular week. Guest speakers and panelists, certainly readings, videos, and a resource library. So there's some rich information that you'll have access to as a part of the Academy. There are some group assignments and exercises that will happen outside of the synchronous meetings. And it's really important that you engage around that. Again, it's a lot, but it's for 5 weeks, right? And so get a chance to really get immersed in the information, and that's important. You'll have access to the data platform, the materials that we'll provide for you for a whole year once you complete the Academy. And even beyond that, our colleagues are here both at the Gardner Institute and the Quality Commons to support you. We're here for you. We want you to succeed. We want you to do well. We want you to have your students really be in a place where they are successful. And that's at the end of the day what they're looking for. We'll have a final deliverable in terms of a project. We're looking for you to put together a plan for how your campus is going to attack this particular issue. How do you embed equity and employability as a part of your curriculum and work with your students around that? And we also would look for a 3-month follow-up. We're going to check in with you. We're not just going to leave you and not connect with you once the 5-week experience is done. We'll do some check-ins to see how you're going, and we'll be there to support you in terms of that. So that's just a look at what the Academy will provide for you. Vicki?
Thank you, Ed. And finally, what we hope is the final deliverable. The reason for the Academy is that you will have what we call a cabinet-ready institutional proposal for action, one that is specifically designed to address equitable completion and employability outcomes across campus or in targeted academic programs. We know that 5 weeks is not enough time to literally engage an entire campus in a strategic planning initiative. What we're doing is training up your team to lead your institution through the planning process that needs to take place at your institution. But you may indeed, and this is one of the reasons we are actively encouraging you to bring in program heads, department chairs of programs who may be willing to dive deep into this for themselves and serve as pilots for your institution, to be able to come away from this with a couple of programs that are saying, and this is what we're going to be doing in our programs to embed these quality assurance, quality elements in terms of employability, but also to embed equity in completion. Because we'll be asking you ultimately to take a look at the passage of your students from entry to the institution, entry into their disciplines, and their completion of the degree. We triumph the number of students, diverse students we admit. We triumph the number of diverse students we graduate. We do not always closely track how well those students are able to complete their desired degree programs based on what they express an interest in at admission versus what they're actually able to complete at the time of graduation. So we will be looking, helping your programs look at entry passage through completion and on into the field of employability.
Oh, Vicki, you're on mute somehow.
So this is your opportunity. We can stop the slides and open it up to your questions. What are the questions you have about the Academy, timing, etc.?
Are we raising hands, putting it in the chat, or just shouting it out?
All good. Yes, thank you, Michelle. Please feel free to raise your hand, shout it out, or put your questions in the chat.
If there really are no questions, I would love to hear. Oh, we do have a question from Angela.
Yes, is it the first offering of the Academy? Yes, this is the first offering of this Academy. And as Drew mentioned, we are inviting you to come into this learning journey with ourselves. It's one of the reasons why, as we're looking at setting the fees for this, we're recognizing that you're co-learners with us in the process.
And an additive there. Over the past 2 years, we've worked with 64 institutions in the Equity and Retention Academy. Depending how you count it, we've probably worked with close to 200 in our Teaching and Learning Academy. So it's not necessarily our first experience with academies of this nature. It is, however, our first experience by factoring in employability, and we're grateful and able to do so because of the QA Commons expertise. So yes, this is the first time with this, but it's not entirely our first rodeo.
A question about, is the schedule set for the Academy, dates, times, etc., for the synchronous meetings? The first Academy offering will begin at the end of September and run through the month of October this fall. I believe the specific dates are also shared on our webpage. We are setting up the time. We have to still coordinate calendars a little bit more with our colleagues at QA Commons, but we will be setting up that time and posting the time for when that synchronous meeting is taking place. But generally speaking, it would be for an hour and a half a week for that 5-week period. We'll also be offering additional opportunities for conversations, presentations by additional experts, individual institutional appointment times that will set up individually with institutions as the Academy kicks off. And are there plans to offer the program regularly? Oh, thank you, Katie. Katie has included the link to the webpage for the Academy in the chat. Yes, as we said, this is our first QA Commons collaboration. We hope that this first charter cohort will be an exciting opportunity to do some learning and refining of this model, and we would hope to be offering this Academy on a regular basis after that. And Dr. Flippen-Wynn has introduced us, has joined us. Thank you. And Katie has also shared a link for registration if you're interested in registering for the Academy this fall. Thank you, Katie. I'm going to throw out a response to a question you haven't asked, but it's one that we know we do get a lot in our Equity and Retention Academy, and that is, what is the time commitment? We're very clear with institutions. We expect the teams to meet, if at all possible, for an hour a week on their own campus, virtually or physically, so that they can discuss what they're seeing in the data templates and discuss the planning questions that we're sharing with you on a weekly basis. The assignments that we mentioned are, the readings will be very rich, but you also have a whole year to come back and keep using them. So you don't have to worry about necessarily getting everything read every single week. But we do encourage teams to stay on top of the planning discussions and the planning templates, because those are all about shaping your plan to plan. So that by the time you reach that 5th week, you pretty much have the basis for your plan to plan already mapped out. So there's time for the synchronous meeting, time for a campus-based meeting, time to look in the platforms and do some readings. It is a time commitment, but it is a very rich and exciting experience. Drew, there's a question about fees based on undergraduate enrollments, headcount or FTE.
So yes, fees will be based on undergraduate enrollment. It'll be based on, or they will be based on data that the institutions themselves share with the National Center for Education Statistics. We get that from the National Student Clearinghouse. Excuse me, no, not National Student, we get it from College Navigator, right? So I know there's a little bit of a lag on that sometimes, a couple of years, which is the way that the integrated post-secondary education data system works. We're still finalizing the fee structure on all of that, right? We're going to, and we're committed to making sure that this is as accessible as possible. That's why we use a sort of enrollment-based structure in all of this. So more over the weeks ahead on our website about fee structure for all this. But yes, based on undergraduate headcount as reported on College Navigator, with a scaling fee based on institutional size, and really done in a not-for-profit manner so that it is accessible, right? In the same way that the not-for-profit institutions that are with us now charge tuition fees, but really do strive to keep them manageable for the students who enroll. Right, so we'll do the same thing. So more on the exact dollar amounts, the enrollment bands over the next 2 weeks, but for now, I hope that gives you enough of a sense of what we're doing and why we're doing it.
I think there's a question from Angela. Are employers directly engaged in informing the structure and the content of the Academy? So a little bit of background is when the QA Commons began, it was a large grant from Lumina that involved, the first step was research and putting together this employability framework, and employers were very involved in that. As time has gone on, we tend to work more through the programs and the employers with which they're engaged. Actually, I was just talking to someone the other day. They used our framework. They had pulled together one of their employer advisory council meetings, right? And they used our EEQs as a frame to sort of have their discussions with employers. So we loved hearing that. We have not brought in employers to inform the structure of this academy, but they have been very involved in sort of structuring QA Commons framework and work. We continue to do some research with them around, employer validation of our essential employability qualities and so forth. So I think the main answer is no, but we are very involved with employers and have been all along the way.
And as mentioned, we will be bringing them in panels to be a part of the teaching faculty, if you will, of the academy as well.
That's right. I think that's week 3. I've actually been working on that, and so I'm excited about that group of folks.
We have a question about a certificate or something upon completing this. As we have done with other academies, we would anticipate being able to issue certificates of completion to all the participants from the institutional teams. Mason, you had unmuted. I didn't mean to step on you there.
No, that's fine. I was just going to add on employers. And one of the things we're doing at QA Commons is we have a lot of other related activities going on with employers around better understanding. When they say they need communication skills, we're doing some research work around different industries, different occupations, working with employers and industry groups, associations. around doing some work on that to better continue. So that will also obviously influence our discussions at the Academy as well.
Are accrediting bodies involved in any way?
In the Academy or in QA Commons's work and framework? What can you specify the question?
Monica Foote, I don't know if Monica, you want to clarify, is it about the Academy or, but she asked.
I'll just take it.
In
the initiative. So I'll say that I could have just answered it straight ahead, huh? Accrediting bodies are not, have not put together this Academy. But similar, I'll say that our founder was Ralph Wolf, who led WASC for 30 years. So that's where this came from. And when he and Lumina got together, the actual question was, what's the next thing in accrediting? So we do have those roots. In fact, we've actually, one of our big initiatives has actually been with the Distance Education Accrediting Commission. So we've been there to speak at their conference a lot recently. So we have those connections, but they are not specifically involved in this in the curricula for this Academy.
But picking up on what Michelle shared, while the Higher Learning Commission or the Northwest Commission of Colleges, the university or SAC-COC or name your accreditor are not necessarily involved in this. We engage with all of them, and a lot of our work has been used by institution as evidence that they're doing evidence-based continuous quality improvement, right? So just because this is not a formally sanctioned HLC or SAC-COC thing doesn't mean you shouldn't use it as you think about continuous quality improvement and as you communicate with your accreditors about ways in which you're using evidence to improve student success and equitable completion and employability outcomes, right? So just frame it that way. I encourage you to think about using this for your work with those accreditors.
Makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Any other questions? Any of my colleagues' final comments that you'd like to make concerning the work of the Academy?
I think we're all excited about it, and it's really exciting to see this group of people here. Actually, you know, for at this time of year when school is out, it's great. So thank you for coming and listening.
There was a reference from one of the participants to colleagues not here who would be very interested in this. We will be offering additional information sessions in August into September before the start of the Academy. We just thought there was a small window to capture some potential interest before everyone packed up and went off on their summer vacations in July. So we were trying to slip in one opportunity before that point, but there will be further opportunities for your colleagues to hear more about the Academy. Drew, Mason, anything else?
We're excited. Again, thank you for the partnership, and thanks to those on the call for the interest. And if there's any questions we can answer, obviously feel free to follow up and we'll do our best. But thank you, everybody.
And yes, what Mason said, we'd love to work with y'all. And as you have friends and colleagues who you may share this with, let us know, what questions they may have. And then we'll be sending out follow-up information on all of this, including registration material, application material, things along those lines. So this is not a speak now or forever hold your peace dynamic. We look forward to any questions or follow-up comments you want to make.
Dr. Lewin, Ed, any final thoughts?
Vicki, again, would just encourage our colleagues to really take a look at this Academy. I think it's a great opportunity to learn, share, and grow and help develop students. So look forward to working with you. Thanks.
excuse me, good afternoon, everyone. And I apologize that I was in another meeting, but this is an amazing academy, and our students are looking for ways to be successful in the marketplace. And this academy is an opportunity to help our students, and our faculty and staff help our students. So thank you very much for being here. Take care.
Thank you all and have a good afternoon.